Hey everyone, it's Stephanie and Edmund.
Hey, everybody.
You are tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 7, Episode 13.
Let me on the show.
Yes, you guys have been asking for him, so I figure with such a great episode, what a great time to bring him back and you can hear all of his thoughts. Couple of things I want to check in on. You guys have been writing regarding Dr. Jessica and John dating. I've heard that as well. I've read a couple of articles around it, and the way that they seem to bypass that, because usually there's a very ethical and more moral compass, which prohibits that type of engagement with a client. What I read in one random article was because she was not their official psychologist or official therapist, she just served as, a relationship expert on the show, but they had their own set of psychologists. It didn't go over the line, legally, I guess. For me personally, it still feels a little icky, but, I guess to each their own if they're able to.
Is she a relationship expert or a sex therapist?
So she is, I think she's like a doctor, but she's a doctor in, I believe, relationship. I would have to look at her credentials.
I thought she came in at first on the sexual or intimacy coach or something like that.
She did. But what happens is there is a whole set of testing behind the scenes before they even get there. There's probably like a whole set of counseling or whatever that happens with your official therapist. And then now you have the experts for the show purpose. So they're more the personality for the show. And so they might not be bound to you legally in a way that the psychologist might. So it's really it's like if you ever seen somebody slide in an elevator as it's about to close, I feel like that's kind of...
Hey man, she knows what she's getting. I mean, and hey, if you find love, you make it happen, man. It's people have found love in more interesting ways. I mean, who cares about the rule books if they really, hit it off? I mean, it's one way to say, okay, this shouldn't happen, blah blah blah. But let's say fast forward 5 years from now, they're married with a kid or whatever, and now that child is born out of this. Then what? Do you still say, oh, that shouldn't have happened because of? I mean, and at the end of the day, if it's really that powerful, screw the job, So. Yeah. That's what John said.
He did. But just so you know, ethically and morally, that's not what we should be doing because it is very intimate. And so you want to make sure that you're not a predator and that person doesn't, transfer their emotions and all that. Because that's happened often because it's such an intimate relationship where you're sharing these things, people get very comfortable and there has to be that very, very strict boundary. I've had many clients inappropriately attempt, and I mean, you just have to know that that's a no-go. But I think the way they wiggled through this is because of the purpose that she serves in the show. So
yeah, I'm speaking more so for that situation, how that role. But as far as you pay for somebody to be your counselor or your therapist, or that's tough. I mean, it's kind of I don't want to say backhanded, but it's kind of, it can be manipulative,
a little bit. So that's one. Two, a lot of people were chiming in about what Mia had told Dr. Jessica when she was explaining why she shuts down during arguments. And therapist hat on, I completely understand there's something that's there, or maybe something that happened when she was younger, or some sort of interaction that causes her to be emotionally blocked. Therapist hat off, I totally get it. Her description was my dad gave me the death glare, and my mom, she was a yeller. Okay, that sounds like a normal, that nothing sounded traumatic with that. That's
my mom's from Mississippi, man. Yelling, I wish that was it.
Right. Once again, it's you want to feel bad for her because you can see that something is going on. It's not normal how she shuts down, so something's there, but her explanation doesn't give us anything outside of a Tuesday morning in a regular family home. When we were playing in church and making noise, my dad would give me the death glare too. So it didn't explain much, but I totally echo you guys' sentiments because everyone was kind of saying the same thing. Okay, so what?
Yeah, but remember what I was saying is that you also got to realize it's TV and you don't know what they edited or what she could have said. It could have been one thing that happened or one and being yelled at in one context, like in what happened to be, because that could be very, detrimental. I was, we were talking the other day how some people shame their kids and they'll put them on, a bold haircut and put them online, and now that person, has issues with, appearance and a lot of things. So it just depends, and so I think it's not to be taken too lightly, because whatever her experience is at that age is her experience, whatever emotion she felt. But at the same time, I think it's not our fault that certain things happens to us, but at a certain age, it's our responsibility to choose whether that's serving us or not, and to leave that in the past. And I think here's the thing that's really interesting. It was profound for me, is that a lot of times we use our past to shape our decisions and to fuel us to who we are. So we blame our parents, our dads, our mothers, whatever, but that is what made us an entrepreneur, or made us, so gung-ho or successful or whatever, or it could have made us shy, bashful, or whatever issues. But I think the problem is a lot of times we have to replace that motivation, that negative reinforcing motivation, with a positive one. And I think a lot of people do that when they have kids, or when they get married, or when they find something, or God, or something that they use to positively influence their decisions and behaviors. So she has to find something else to serve her besides what she has been using for her past life, because shutting down a relationship, that's not going to work.
Right. So that's great stuff. Hey, he's doing better than me today.
I'm saving it up, man. I'm done though. I'm it. That's it for today.
I'm exhausted, y'all. Hence why this video is late. We've had a very busy week, so but we wanted to make sure that we gave you the good stuff and get it in. So let's just jump into episode 13. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not even going to waste time with the other couples yet. I'm just going to kick it off with Mia and Tristan. So I don't even know what to say. Mia and Tristan get into this argument that basically is off of the tail end of insurance. So apparently she was supposed to take care of some stuff. And you guys, we missed like the first 2 minutes. So like, please fill us in if we're missing something. But she was supposed to take care of some stuff. She probably didn't. Tristan got very agitated in her not completing that task. He went ahead and said, you know what, I'm going to cancel my insurance. So he canceled his insurance, but he didn't tell her, because the plan was that they were going to get on the same insurance. I guess maybe they didn't have a conversation about that, because the way that Mia responds, which we know Mia and we've beat Mia up this whole season, but I will say I appreciate how she was able to, especially when she struggles to do it, stand up for herself and really say, listen, regardless of if I was supposed to complete the task or not, we're supposed to be making these decisions together. And you made this decision kind of without me. You didn't let me know. We didn't sit down. Tristan did not respond well at all. Tristan, he shows himself, we've always said he shows himself somewhat immature and goofy. They kind of have that little kid interaction that they have. But he really presented himself as someone who really is not mature enough to handle, I think, a marriage. He seems like the more, calm, appropriate one. So we give him a lot of kudos. But the way he completely dismissed her, she said something like, you make all the decisions. That's a major statement, whether you agree with it or not. There are times you need to hear your spouse for what they're saying, not what you're wanting to respond, or not what you feel like they should say based on how you feel. And so, he's like, well, challenging her, like, okay, well, tell me, what decisions? And she said, like, the insurance decision. And he says, okay, that one, okay. Kind of like, okay, wrap it up. What else? Get to the point so that I can basically dismiss what you're saying and invalidate how you feel. That really pissed me off. You can jump in.
No, I would just say, when you don't listen to somebody or hear what they're saying, you just defend, it makes it tough. It makes it so one-sided, and she doesn't have a choice of where to go. And Tristan is has a loud voice. He's a large stature, and so he's a very powerful person, just period, in appearance and everything. And to be and me is so small, and so she's standing up for herself, which I'm proud of her for. And in the beginning, she was had some things going on, so we were kind of riding with what Tristan was saying. But he's very controlling. He doesn't really let her talk. Doesn't really listen to her. And that can be worked on. That can be worked through for him to listen. But the biggest thing that I see is him walking out, leaving, and saying "I'm done" over and over and over. After he said he wouldn't say that, people say things in relationships and say, "Hey, I'm not going to say that anymore." And you have to stick by that. And if you do say "I'm done," you really need to be done. Like don't play with that word, because it's really just a control mechanism, and it's not fair. So he's not fighting fair, and he's not listening to what she feels. And a lot of times as men, we get to a point where we listen to fix or listen to defend or correct but sometimes we need to shut the hell up and just really hear what she's saying and not saying, and what she's feeling, because sometimes people aren't good at putting it into words, and that's where the heart has to come in and really feel what a person is saying, and he's not doing that. And it doesn't look like without therapy he would do it at all. I mean, I was with that time they talked, they were so far away on the couch, and then after the counseling they got back. But every time they get into it, they need a counselor to bring them together, which I think is good in one way, because they're using the resources, but then they have to use the tools outside. The counselor's not going to be there 24/7, but your wife or husband will be.
Yeah, his coping mechanisms are non-existent, and he appears to be somebody who will compromise, but he made his decision about Houston a long time ago.
They already signed the lease.
Yeah.
They got furniture in there now. They got the sign up. Oh, it's already ready. Yeah, we move quick. Yeah, we did this 8 months ago.
Yeah, he made that decision a long time ago, and he won't let her have emotions about it. So what if she's apprehensive? She legit met you 6 weeks ago. It's okay for her. As long listen, in marriage there are decisions that are made that you might not be always 100% gung-ho about, but it might be your spouse's time to shine, or you might just let them take the lead, and you are compromising for the greater good, and you just have to let that person have their apprehension and support them, knowing that we're all still on the same page with the same goal. So I don't think he allows her to do that, and that's what triggered the rollout of her suitcase. I can't. It's so ridiculous It's so ridiculous that I
rolling. Johnny, keep riding dirty.
Yeah, that was dirty. He rolled her suitcases out. He rolled her suitcases out.
It's not funny.
He made it seem like she said she wanted to leave. Listen, she would have had to leave herself. There is never a time where, you kick your spouse out. I mean, okay, maybe, there are a couple of instances where I think, okay. But when we're talking about arguments, even major arguments, you don't kick your spouse out. Even if they say they want to leave, you allow them to leave. You don't roll their stuff out, because he couldn't, understand that he really kicked her out. I don't care if she said it. We didn't really get to see that, but he literally rolled all her stuff out. She's standing in the hallway. How embarrassing. Just as a spouse, but also as a woman, technically she can't overpower him physically. And he asked her if she wanted this candle, and she said no, and he threw it on the floor. I mean, my 2-year-old nephew does that stuff. Like, that's who I thought of in that moment. Like, a baby who is having a tantrum. And to treat somebody that you say you love, which I've never bought the whole love thing from them, because, but even somebody that you aspire to love, or that you are caring for, or even a stranger, like, to kick somebody out like that and have her stand in the hallway with her stuff, whether she said it or not, was like, there's no turning back from that
was bold. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'm a product of divorce, and my mother and father are still cool, to this day. They did things in a respectful manner, and I'm not, saying that things don't happen where you do get, heated, But to roll a woman stuff out, I mean, this was so low as a man. Like, man up. If this is going to happen, at least walk her, make sure she's safe, drive her to her place, if that does happen. But she didn't want to get kicked out. And then he changed the narrative to fit him with people around. And I think I love video, right? The fact that we can see what you actually said versus what you said to somebody else is so interesting, because he would have, if this were no cameras, he would have said, oh, she wanted to leave, blah, blah, blah. And now you're like, well, you wanted to leave, and she doesn't really fight for herself. And in that moment, where am I going? This is my house. Like, how are you going to have me go to Houston, and then this is your house? So, and then you want to change insurance? Like, how are you going to be 1 foot in, 1 foot? Insurance is, I mean, that's legal stuff. That's real stuff. You don't change that if you're not fully committed, you know? So, and the whole not having a conversation, that was terrible. I don't care if somebody's supposed to do it or not. That's something you do talk about. Or so Mia, I think she was in the right in this one. This was just it was bad. It was very telling, and it kind of came back. But I'm not buying it, man, at all. I feel like they lied to themselves to try to, because they want this mirage of a marriage or whatever, and they're lying to themselves, so therefore lying to each other. And I don't know. It just seems real interesting. I'm not sure about how this. I know we got other couples, but
yeah, no. This is the main event, so we can rock with it, because then we see Tristan talk to Pastor Cal, and once it's a one-sided narrative, and I love this. One of the many reasons I love Pastor Cal is because he's no nonsense. And even if you told a one-sided narrative, he doesn't jump on your bandwagon because it sounds good. He's going to challenge you, which he did. He challenged Tristan, and of course Tristan seems very receptive, but it's almost like in one ear out the other. Like, yeah, I'm going to say the right thing. I'm going to appear to look like I'm going to do the right thing, but I'm not really, really going to exhibit that in who I am. So if we fast forward to them, at the end, they meet with Pastor Cal in person.
Oh, hold on. Mm-hmm. Did we get to the part where he kind of got like emotional? Did we get to that where he got emotional about he didn't know that this was something, and then he walked out? Was that this episode?
No, that was last episode.
I think he uses that as a tool too, but
his emotions and checking out.
Yeah,
because he gets very, very like almost like acting, and the Academy Award goes to. And you're like,
attention, it's significance. It's an attention-seeking significance. I don't think he's even conscious of he's doing it. And everybody watching it, like, realize a lot of times the things we do is to gain control or gain significance in a situation. If we have a temper, I used to have a temper, and it was to gain attention. I didn't know that at the time, but if you have a temper in a room, everybody focuses on you. I mean, if you walk out of the relationship, if you walk out of you're crying, all of that stuff. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's to bring it towards you because it's getting so far away from you and your control. And I think even Shanice used in the other episode, she used to use that. Sometimes it was real, and sometimes it was an attention thing, and it's a habit. It's not like she knew she was doing it or trying to be a certain way. I'm just saying to kind of look outside yourself and see, hey, where do I do this? Where do I kind of make sure the attention is on me, and is it serving me? Sometimes it is, sometimes it is.
That's a good point. The difference with Shanice, I think, is that she just genuinely copes that way, where I feel like if we look at it, Tristan can begin to use that as like a form of manipulation, because crying in general, the moment anybody starts crying, the room kind of stops or the focus goes on them. But I think when men start crying, that's really like, okay, everything needs to stop, because normally they don't cry, and so it must be really bad. And so over time, I think that if he gets hip to that, that could be a form of manipulation, and it might already be happening, and he doesn't even know it. So fast forward to the end of the episode, they meet with Pastor Cal in person. They're on opposite ends of the couch. He says basically share how you're feeling, etc. Mia says, that she feels hurt, essentially, that he kicked her out. He has this narrative of he didn't kick her out, that she left. But how could you forget rolling her stuff out into the hallway? I mean, you did kick her out. You also reminded her that this place is yours, that this place is never really ours. It's always
everybody get your roll on.
Okay.
What?
All right. Okay.
Get your roll.
He doesn't he didn't make that place there's no way to come back from that, because in my mind, and this is what she says, is, we can go to Houston and you would kick me out too. Like, is this going to be my experience that I'm like always essentially not in a safe place? So she shares that. She shares that she feels discarded, that she could be just thrown away so easily. And, Tristan, what does Tristan say? Tristan is struggling with feeling like he's not a good husband. And so he got somewhat emotional about that because he was listening to her share her frustrations. And he just basically shared how she once again said that she wasn't sure about Houston. And he said, if you don't want to be there, I don't want you there. He's making it seem like he said that in a productive way. I'm 100% sure that he doesn't, because he gets loud and angry. And he storms off again. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want people to know, when I'm joking about the roll on, it has nothing to do with Mia, because I think that's sad. I think it really is sad. Just the way he did it, like watching him roll her up out of it was just so. I'm laughing to stop from like being hurt myself from the way it was. Nobody should be treated like that. I think it's just terrible. So I want that to be fully known. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just interested to see what happens next with them. I'm just going to refrain from anything else because I just want to see how this plays out.
Okay, well, I can't help myself, so I'm going to jump back on this wagon. Because I can't. Because he is such a, what a cop-out. Here's what really upset me about him leaving during the session with Pastor Cal. And if she doesn't think I'm a good husband, then I'm not the right guy for you, and storms out. Hello, you got married. That means you're committed. You're not always going to operate at your best. You're not always going to be the best husband. You're not always going to be the best wife. Sometimes the best thing that you can hear is that you're not operating at your best, so that you're aware of what you can change to be a good spouse. Even if you are a good spouse, there are times where you're going to fall short. I literally was yelling at the TV, so what, you're not a good husband? Now you know. Now here's the opportunity. Here's the opportunity to become a good husband. You don't get married to be a good husband and a good wife, and then if this person gives you feedback like, hey, these needs are not being met, or you did something so vile that, oh, okay, well, here's an easy, cop out. I guess we shouldn't be doing this. What? That it doesn't work that way. If you know marriages that last a very long time, it doesn't work that way where people just give up because things are not working out. A couple of days ago, my parents celebrated their 36th wedding anniversary. I've seen a lot of stuff go on. What I have seen is perseverance, and I've seen them be able to ride the wave, good and bad, back to good. And so it's really frustrating to watch him walk out and just, once again, he needs somebody to rub his back. And you are a good husband. You might suck at being a husband. You don't really know how to be a husband until you become a husband. You don't know how to be a wife until you become a wife. And then even as you're becoming those things, there are so many changes that happen, and you need to learn to ride the wave of wife life, husband life, and just life in general all together. So if you're not ready for it, then don't waste your time, because you don't get, she doesn't need to say that you're doing a great job if you're not. And I don't even think that she was saying that. She was just talking about something that was so overtly inappropriate and disrespectful. So I'm over him, like 100%. I was over him to begin with. We all know why. Then I tried to, then the handcuffs came, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt with Mia, and now I'm back to being over him because his true colors are showing, and he's not this get along great guy. I even said during the episode, what if he approached his businesses the way he approached his marriage? I'm sure his businesses didn't start out bountiful. You had to work really hard for that, and you had to take the L that I'm not a great business person, or I could be doing this better, or here's where I'm failing. How can I do better? You approach your marriage with even more intent, because that's something that builds and is monumental in more than just way. Business is just business. Marriage encompasses a lot of things, and it can also incorporate business. So I would tell him, if I was going to talk to him, but I won't, that He needs to approach it the very same way that he approaches other things that he finds important.
I'll speak on that. As a business coach, and I've been an entrepreneur since 2007 and help people create their businesses and launch them, I could see that in people too. Like, I could see where some people are not, anybody can be an entrepreneur, let me say that. But where a lot of people are, they're not ready for it. They if you can't handle ups and downs and losses and sporadic income and people being upset and refund, you're not ready for this life. And I'll tell people, like, you don't want to be an entrepreneur for real. You want the traditional every 2-week check. So it's the same thing with marriage. You're going to be up and downs, and sometimes people do this when they're ready or not ready, or don't even know what they're getting into, or they're getting into something that they feel society wants them to get into, or they should be, just because they're hanging around the friends and they're the fifth wheel. So what? Be the person that understands where you need to go. And Tristan is like, look, my businesses come first. You got to fit into this box. And I don't know if she's going to fit into that box.
Just be ready to compromise. It's not all about you. It's certain, to me, true balance is that some things are out of balance. So let's say you have a deadline. Even if you're married, that deadline might come first. That doesn't mean that you're not the priority in the grand scheme of things, but the deadline for the business may come first for that week. It is what it is. The bigger picture is learning the intent of commitment and being committed to what you said long after the feelings of when you said you were committed are gone. So I'll say that again. It's excited to get committed when you are excited about it, but real commitment is being committed long after you said that you were committed in the excited feelings, when you experienced those excited feelings when you were committed. So that's Tristan and Mia, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's all, folks. That's it. All right, next time, subscribe, like, comment, share.
So that's Tristan and Mia's rant made me hot, so I'm fanning myself. But so now Dave and Amber. I really enjoyed watching Dave and Amber. So the episode was about goals. We didn't even talk about that yet, but the episode was about goals and planning futuristically. I really enjoyed watching them. They're starting to learn who each other are, and Dave is really like enjoying her being quirky and not taking her so seriously. Amber's a little bit of a goofball, and she was talking about her retirement community and being at the retirement pool
at
and
55.
just right. She's actually so sweet. Yes, she's has her issues, but
and then Dave's like, yeah, and our 12-year-old son will come and
yeah, it was so fun, and he was so funny, and I was like, oh my God, he's funny. It took us 13 episodes to see it, but I really enjoyed watching them. They had a very cool vibe this episode.
It sounded like a married couple.
Yes, joking, where they got together with Bobby and Danielle. Obviously me and Tristan couldn't make it for the game. No. The games, they couldn't make it for the outdoor games. They won that, which I knew. I was like, okay, Dave and Amber are totally gonna win this. But they had really good teamwork. They joked around. It was just really good to watch them just enjoy each other. I don't remember anything out of the ordinary happening with them. Watching them do their goals and him talking about what he wants and her talking about what she wants and joking about it, because you're not always on the same page, but there are compromises to be made. But just really enjoying and having a good time. They have a lot of stressors, and we all have a lot of stressors, and sometimes it's just good to just take time out and just enjoy an activity that is not centered around stress. So
I just think it's good they're building trust and playing those games, and sometimes doing something different than just the norm can build trust, games, activities, events and stuff like that. So doing different dates and different challenges, I think that's good to incorporate the flower pot and stuff like that. A lot of people don't think of that. I know a lot of these producers are thinking of that for them, but we have to be our own producers of our own, TV life. So I think
that's smooth.
Looking at, you like that?
Yeah.
Copyright it, write it down, take a picture, videograph it, Instagram,
okay.
Snapchat,
okay.
post it,
Next,
Facebook,
move on,
Facebook
move on.
Live, Pinterest.
Move on.
Okay. All right. Twitter, MySpace.
Okay, so that's Dave and Amber. Last but certainly not least, Bobby and Danielle.
I'm scared of Bobby.
Okay.
You put it out there. I would fight anybody on that show but Bobby. I'm saying he seems so sweet and innocent, but when he lost that challenge, man, I saw it in his face. He was not happy. I just don't want pressure. They need to work out. I think they need to be more active, or he needs an outlet, man. I know he's perfect and everything is all right and everything's great and everything's peaches and I love, the sweat of my wife's. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying, I just hope that guy finds some release and relaxation. That's all I'm gonna say.
Because he has a lot of pent-up frustration. I think he's putting so much into this. And Danielle is saying she is putting so much into it, but I really don't think she's putting as much. She's doing what's comfortable for her. Once again, she baits him. They do this FaceTime while she's out of town for work, where she's like, do you miss me? On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you miss me?
She's
and
so
he
17.
says 10, but I mean, she doesn't get the question out, and it's 10. And he has to ask her, like, if somebody says 10, that's your opportunity to say, like, I miss you 2 or I miss you 20, whatever. Don't ask somebody that if you're not going to meet them. He has to prompt her to say, do you miss me? And she says, yeah. And then she walks in. If you guys notice, she walks in and
loves the dog.
Loves the dogs. And he's just standing there waiting for his turn on the Ferris wheel, but it gets stuck when he's like in there. She loves on the dogs longer than she does him. Like, she's hi and she kisses him and hugs him, but then she goes back to the dogs and she's talking to the dogs and come on, like, okay, you love your pets, great, but like the fact that he was standing there waiting, like.
And then she says the whole "I love what you do for me." I think he's doing the right role, and I don't know. I mean, hey, if it's working for them, it's working for them. They can grow into a deeper connection. She can work through it. At least she started. I give her kudos for writing the letter. She didn't read it. I know she was supposed to read it.
She did not read it. But it's a cop out.
I know, but she's starting. I mean, she's taking the baby. She's crawling. She's not walking. But somebody has to tell. He's not telling her, hey, can you read that? They're going to need more therapy. They're going to need another counselor to come in and take them to the next step. But
here's what frustrates me with that. I can't help myself. The reason Dr. Jessica gave her the writing portion of the assignment is because that's where she's comfortable. If you guys remember, she lit up, I love to write, Okay, cool. So I'll, in Dr. Jessica's mind, I'm assuming, okay, I'll have her write the letter, and then to challenge her a little bit, I'll have her read it. So really, to me, the meat and potatoes of that challenge was reading it so that he can hear and you can express. And she didn't do that. She just blatantly didn't do that. She did what she was comfortable doing, and he is so thirsty. He's in a desert that he ran across this almost empty water bottle, and he was so happy for the drips. Like, and that's not fair to him. He is going to snap soon because it's just very one-sided. And because he hasn't shown any, real defiance with their setup, that's why it's working out so perfectly. And because they're staying at the surface, they're still in the 3 feet.
Yeah. And they have to get deeper because here's the thing. It's like people were saying, oh, they have a great relationship, don't want something to happen. That's not what we're saying. We don't want them to have conflict. We want them to build a deep foundation, because what happens is, what people don't realize in marriage is that life will happen while you're in this. If you're like on sand and then someone passes away in Bobby's family, not to wish that, or he loses his job, he wants to work till 75, or something happens physically, or accident, anything could happen, or marriage, and then issues with pregnancy. There's a lot of life stuff that will happen just because we're human. And the stronger your foundation and the depth that you have, if you can't talk now, how are you going to explain emotions when stuff happens that really, really affect you? And I think it's not like there's a big issue that they have that's like glaring, but I think there's just, even Pastor Cal was mentioning something, or one of the therapists were saying something like they need to kind of get deeper their communication. Maybe it was Dr. Jessica, because she was saying that, and I think some people get it wrong, because I'm looking at some of the comments and they're like, well, if it's happy and it's all go lucky, that's true, and ride the wave. This is still the honeymoon phase. It's only 6 weeks. It's not like they have to have some big issue, but they do need to be able to address the things. That's the big issue. The big issue is that Bobby is so wants to be so perfect that he doesn't want to address almost anything.
Her too.
And they just kind of let it be. And some people live life like that. I mean, some people have marriages that last a long time that are just kind of surface level, but it doesn't. I don't know. It's just kind of like a partnership.
Here's the thing. People are saying they don't have a big issue. The big issue is that they allegedly don't have a big issue, but they're not talking. They're not going beyond the surface. She's very guarded. He's kind of thirsty for affection. What? Like, we're so programmed. Society has conditioned us to believe the big issues is like the dramatic stuff. And so where's the drama? And they don't have the drama, so leave them alone. No, they have a big issue. Because there's a lot of things that can happen in life that require you to be completely naked in front of your spouse. And not naked in the fun way, but naked in the way that, has you be more transparent than you want to be. But this is your helpmate. This is your spouse. They have to see you in like a low place, and you have to allow them in that space for the benefit of you and for the benefit of the relationship. Because if you're in a low place and you shut your spouse out, then they feel some type of way. And there's so many layers to this stuff. They have a big issue.
And I think the thing is, like, Bobby is such, like, you can tell he was raised, this is what a man does, this is your role, and blah, blah, blah. And so one of the things I want to say, just from a man's point of view, we're not as outwardly emotional as women normally. But as far as how much emotion affects us, it's worse. It's worse, far worse, because of our ego and our pride. And so imagine, ladies that's watching this, imagine you come to a man and say, finally, and you have issues, saying this, and you say, I love you. And he's like, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much, he hit her with the Barry Gordon, the smooth, the Barry White, yeah, baby, that's cool. Let's shake it, Let's go out and walk. Like, what? She just kind of looked like deer in headlights. Like, what do I do with this? Even if you don't feel the same way, man, wow. Oh, I didn't know you felt that way. That's amazing. I really care about you, or blah, blah, blah. If you don't, I don't think you should say it just because somebody else says it. That's right. One thing. But man, you should have caught that a little better. And Bobby's just like, ugh, and that he's going to remember. He has said stuff about that afterwards, and he's going to remember that. And so, but I think also on the flip side, some couples use it as a tool. Sorry.
He's having a allergic reaction to.
Allergic to the board.
Yeah, but so I think that's a great point that he brought up. We've cut I think Danielle some slack. Obviously we all find it problematic that she doesn't share her emotions, but I feel like if the shoe was on the other foot and maybe Danielle was the one pouring into Bobby and he was giving her nothing, I think we would be more difficult on Bobby.
Oh man, so that's light thing on fire. Man. Yeah, don't let a man do that. Man. Right. Oh, he is blah blah blah. Okay. Man,
yeah, we would. That's a good point. I didn't even think about it. But I've always been pretty consistent about how annoying it is that she shows up in the way that she shows up, and regardless of whatever the reasons are. It's not enough. We can find validated reasons why we are the way that we are. But what's the goal here? What's the plan? And if you are aware enough to say, well, this is why I respond the way that I do, or this is why I am the way I am, then you're also aware and responsible for moving beyond that, regardless of whatever happened. So like there's a saying that's like your past trauma isn't your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. So,
I like that.
So that is Bobby and Danielle. And we'll see. I don't have much to say about them. I like to just dissect some of the stuff that I know that we're all thinking. But, in terms of watching them, there isn't much going on with them as per usual. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. Anything else you want to say?
Oh, I'm glad you all, hopefully enjoy, like, and comment, and subscribe, like she said.
All right. Everybody have a great day, and I'll see you next week.